Hello everybody, I'm Gwen Campbell-Mindes. Welcome to Gwen's Bookish Ramblings. So Ice Time, A Portrait of Figure Skating is one of those books that I picked up, first of all, years and years after it was published, but because I had gone through a figure skating phase in my life, like many people do. Not many girls do, let's be honest. To this day, it remains less of a boy thing. But the thing is that I wasn't a figure skater. I frankly never really had the patience for it. My father had gotten me figure skates and I tended to misuse them. I didn't skate properly. I used the toe picks to drive myself forward on the ice instead of skating like, a person should properly skate. And then there was that incident where I threw up 3 times at a skating rink and just never went back. But I still loved watching figure skating, and that has to do, of course, with the fact that I have in the past been a bit of an obsessive dance maven, meaning I have watched some really, really awful things because there was dancing in them. For the record, I tried watching Flashdance and couldn't because the dancing in that is, in my opinion, awful. For a variety of reasons, but we're not going to talk about my opinions of Flashdance, which I did not watch all the way through to the end because I could not do that. We're talking about Ice Time, A Portrait of Figure Skating. Now, for those who don't know, which, if you're not a figure skating maven, then this is the kind of thing you don't know. Debbi Wilkes was a pairs skater in the 1950s and 1960s. As you can see, Canadian Junior Pair Champions 59, Canadian Champions 63-64, North American Champions 63, bronze medalists in the world 64, and bronze and/or silver medalists, which I will explain later, in the 1964 Olympics. And so, when she's talking about figure skating, it's not just that she understands what she's looking at when she sees somebody out there and they do a triple Lutz and a double loop and she knows what that actually means and whether it's an inside, outside edge, backwards approach or what. But it's that she also has had the opportunity to therefore watch figure skating how it has grown and developed since the 1950s up to 1994 when this book was published. Let me just double check on that date. Yes, 94. And so the thing is that this book starts off to an extent very, very autobiographical, because she is a world champion grade figure skater. She's a national champion. She was, back when there was still a North American championship, she was a North American champion. So she does, she does have a figure skating story that is her own. And it's an interesting story in a lot of ways, not least of which because there is some remarkable egotism on the part of a much, much younger Debbi Wilkes. Just remarkably impressive hardcore egotism. That, you can tell she looks back on that egotism and just sort of shaking her head and sighing at her younger self, but she was, 12, 13, 14, and you're going to the Junior Pair Championships and the Canadian National Championships and so on and so forth, and that's pretty heady stuff. But there's also the fact that she's looking back on how things worked and the politics of skating, because figure skating has always had a lot of politics. It's one of the reasons why about 10, 15 years ago now, give or take, there was this massive, massive change in how they did figure skating judging. you see, figure skating had 3 judging things on it, that your score was made up of 3 parts. On any given night, that you had your short program and your long program, and actually I'll talk about an interesting thing, but first, short program and long program. But in any individual given program, you would have a technical score out of 6, where basically what happened was you would go out there and you would skate, and they would say, okay, she landed the jump well, or she landed the jump badly. He did the spins really well. He did his spins badly. The footwork sequence was tight and well put together. The footwork sequence was sloppy, whatever. And you would take your grade out of 6, and you would deduct points as you went. And then you would have your artistic score, which, for the record, I maintain is what makes this not a sport. Now, not to say that figure skaters are not tremendously athletic people who have a kind of athleticism that is, that in some cases is unmatched and in other cases cannot be beaten. You cannot beat a professional Olympian world championship grade figure skater in terms of athleticism. You can't get better than them. You can be different. You can have different areas of focus and so on and so forth, but you cannot be a better athlete than they are. But you can't call... I don't call it a sport precisely because they are judging it on art. A sport should not be judged on artistic merit. A sport should be judged on scoring, and I can appreciate and accept judging it on a purely technical level, but the artistic part is highly problematic. I mean, it would absolutely destroy figure skating for what it is if, you took away the art part, because all you would need to do then is say everybody has to do exactly the same program, and whoever does it best is on a technical level is the winner. But, you would destroy what figure skating actually is. But the other thing, and the thing that was the real problem, was the ordinals. And the ordinals were originally designed to make up for the fact that you would give somebody a really, really great artistic score, and then somebody else would come out and you'd say, oh my god, this person's even better, but I can't give them a higher score than a 6 because 6 is as high as things go. And so an ordinal would allow you to say, wait, no, I want this person to be in first. And ordinals got so much weight that people were able to just use ordinals to great effect to ruin people's lives, really. Now, Debbi Wilkes insists that all of the scoring was really quite good and there was much more fairness than people think and so on and so forth, but the fact is that there's so much talk of politics in this book that you have to wonder about it. And furthermore, I watched a lot of figure skating back in the day, and the fact that people kept on using the phrase "has to pay their dues." She has to pay her dues. He has to pay his dues. This dance skating team has to pay their dues. And the thing is that in order for Shailene Bourne and Victor Kratz or Lloyd Eisler and Isabelle Brasseur to get to where they were, you have to pay your dues. And what that usually meant, I felt in a lot of ways that what that very often meant was, we're going to give you lower scores until we have deemed you worthy of getting somewhere. Back to the athletics thing, I want you to imagine for a moment that you are moving forward at about 20 to 30 kilometers an hour, so 15 to 20 miles an hour, on ice, with holding a woman up overhead without either of you falling over and breaking something. And if you can tell me that you think that that is not an incredible feat of athleticism, then I don't really know what to say to you. But the point is, there was so much talk about paying dues that it was clear that there were internal biases that were fundamentally unaddressed, but have remained unaddressed by the system, because they came up with this whole new scoring system that actually did absolutely nothing to deal with any of those political issues. So, whatever. Also, Elvis Stoico and Kurt Browning, two of the biggest figure skating stars in the history of ever, and I was never a Kurt Browning person. I don't care how nice he might have been to people, that he personally met. I always felt that he looked way too smarmy, and Elvis Stoico was my guy. Elvis Stoico was great. I just always wanted to punch Kurt Browning in the mouth. People think it's charming. I don't care. His Casablanca thing made me want to kneecap him just to get him off the ice. He was amazing. He's talented. He was so skilled. He was fantastic. And I just wanted to shove his smug face into a wall. Anyways, make of that what you will, but that was always my opinion. I was always an Elvis Stoico girl. Anyways, so this book talks a lot about the 1994 Olympics, the Olympics right before, the World Championships right before and right after, and how all of that worked, and it naturally, given when this was written, had to discuss, at least tangentially, the Tonya Harding, Nancy Kerrigan thing, which is the story that Tonya Harding hired somebody to kneecap her biggest competition, literally hired somebody to whack the woman with a pipe in the knee because she was so desperate to win. And honestly, I think the most telling thing in this book is the fact that Nancy gets kneecapped, and Debbi Wilkes remembers looking at somebody that she was working with at the time and just saying, Tonya. I think it says a heck of a lot about Tonya that anybody's first thought was just automatically, yes, she has, this is absolutely it. Anyways, Nancy Kerrigan actually was the one who came up with an interesting move in skating, an interesting variation in figure skating that had to do with her spiral sequences. That is the part where a figure skater is supposed to move forward just like in a long curving line across the ice, that you get up enough speed that you can basically just cross the entire rink without having to make another move. And the big thing about that was that what she had done was this beautiful floating arabesque thing, but because she had been kneecapped, she still couldn't quite manage to keep her leg where it needed to be. And so she would reach back and hold the leg up in the appropriate position, and it was actually a really, really great move aesthetically, and it's something that I think in the following years got picked up by quite a few other skaters, not just because, you're able to therefore brace your leg upright without having to worry about losing control of where it is, but also because it means you're not flapping your arms around out to the side in that occasionally graceless way that can happen if you're not really, really careful. Anyways, but one of the other prejudices in figure skating that came out was her commentary about Surya Bonali, who was a figure skater who was handicapped by two things and screwed up on a third thing, and that was Surya Bonali was both black and French, and the French are not known as, have never been known as figure skating powerhouses, so it was a bit of a thing, and she could never land. She was always trying quad jumps, and I have to assume she could do them because it's dumb to do something in competition that you can't do, but she never landed a quad in competition, and it just ruined her chances at ever winning anything. She never broke past fourth place in any of the major competitions. And yes, I have used this as an opportunity to ramble about a sport that I have not in fact watched much, if at all, in the past decade or so. But it's an interesting book. It's interesting when it talks about the business. It's interesting when it talks about the evolution of the sport. And it gets a little grim at the end, and that's all I have to say, so I'll see you all next week.